Welcome to SorWil Solutions, where we talk about what's going on in our community. Today's special guest is Karen Overbey, school board member for USD 453, and a very good friend of mine. Thank you very much for being here.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Let's talk about a little bit. How did you get onto the school board? Let's talk about how you got here. I do like to tell the story, and I told you I was going to tell it. I did happen to know Karen Overbey when we were in ROTC at the University of Kansas. She was a senior. I was a freshman. She was kind enough to give me rides to PT in the morning at 5 a.m. Oh my gosh, that was so early back then. I couldn't get up for it. Now I get up for it all the time. But it was just amazing to get to know you again, and now see you as a school board member and a mom and a grandmother.
Yes, absolutely.
So
And you as well. It's a small world, isn't it?
It is. It is. How did you get involved with the school board?
Well, first of all, most of my, aside from a very short military career, most of my adult life, I've been a home mom. I
Okay.
have 5 children, so
Wow.
I definitely care about kids. Definitely care about the future of our country, and having 4 of those 5 kids who have come through Leavenworth Public Schools and graduated and are off doing their thing. Um, Last one will be a senior this year. Um, I definitely care about Leavenworth Public Schools. I care about this district. And so that's, I care about that. And then what kind of led me into thinking about maybe running for school board, which is something I would never, ever consider. I'm kind of an introvert, kind of like to stay to myself. But along about 2020, with COVID and some of the COVID practices that were going on in our schools at the time nationwide, um, with the masking and the in school and the out of school, um, and then some of the things that had been some of, I guess I would call them some of the social issues, social justice type of things
Sure.
that had been percolating for a long time, decades. But if you remember that time, all of that just kind of just exploded.
Yeah.
And I just started thinking, I mean, we're breaking things that we can't put back together
Sure.
easily. And that's very concerning. This does not go to a good place. So I definitely was concerned about that. Um, and also, that saying, um, a s- what a system does is what it's for.
Okay.
And all we're hearing about at that time, if you remember, of course, all of us were home a lot, online a lot, a little too much, probably. Some of us are still online a little too much. But, and all you're hearing about is, what's happening in our schools now we're telling kids who and what they are based on what they look like, and what, and some of the gender stuff and all of the stuff that just kind of exploded at that time. And I'm thinking, if what it does is what it's for, our schools are not for that. I disagree with that vehemently. So about that time, got involved with some local school board campaigns that have been 2021, and stayed engaged and involved, and then ultimately ran in 2023.
That's amazing. Let me ask you one question. You're not from Leavenworth though?
No, I am not from Leavenworth. I actually grew up in Arizona.
Okay.
And went in the Army for a little while. Ended up at University of Kansas. Went through ROTC there. Went back in the Army for a little while, and then got out and raised my family.
So you got commissioned, but you started out as an enlisted.
I did.
Okay.
Yes.
I always think that's an amazing route. Think of the number of people that we knew back then, and a lot of those former enlisted that became officers. It's a great route to go for people. We were in New Jersey at the time of COVID, so I hear the stories of the things that happened here. we were locked down for almost 9 months in New Jersey. My son probably attended over a 2-year span, 2 months of school. Everything was
Wow.
online learning. So when I hear the stories here and I hear everybody's frustration, it was bad here, but it could have been a lot worse.
It could have been a lot worse. That is true. But all of it, and I don't necessarily, um, I don't know. It was just a really bad time, and
Sure.
I feel like we did have information, and we did have common sense that was just, for whatever reason during that time, was not adhered to, and
Ignored.
I was very much on the, it was very upsetting, and it was very upsetting to even just, seeing my son, who was at Warren at the time, 7th grade, and for a period of time, it was just a short period of time, but after they left that spring and didn't come back to school, and then when they started up in the fall and they had half the class in class and half the class out of class and day on, day off, kind of like that,
Mhm.
and watching him basically go through the bell schedule on his Chromebook, and
Maddening.
it was maddening, and we left Leavenworth Public Schools and put him at Xavier just to get him in class.
So Xavier, the parochial schools weren't adhering to that same schedule?
No, they were
Interesting.
open. Now they have fewer students, they had more space, they had,
Gotcha.
but they were, that next fall, they were back in school, and, um, we felt like we needed him to be in a classroom. So he did his 7th and 8th grade over there and then came back. So,
Interesting. One of the things you said is you'd heard things about teachers and stuff. That what have you learned since you've become a school board member about our teachers? One of the things that I hear from different points of view is that our teachers are indoctrinating kids. Do you agree with that? Is that true?
I would say somewhat. I guess I'd fall down the middle of the road on that. Not all our teachers are doing that. Definitely, um, through our schools of education, there
Mhm.
is a worldview. There is and so naturally, if you're trained in that environment, you're going to sort of have that worldview. It comes out, sometimes maybe comments in class, and
Mhm.
or so. I mean, I guess I would just fall down the middle on that one.
I've got a
And education
daughter-in-law.
is indoctrination. I mean, it is in a
Sure.
sense, like in the purest sense, because you are indoctrinating a set of, knowledge and values and
Mhm.
and things like that. Um, so I guess maybe a better way to answer that is maybe there's some indoctrination that, um, does not align with my worldview.
So I think that the indoctrination that that we're talking about really is more towards the LGBTQ. I don't think anybody questions what's being taught in the classrooms, maybe to a certain extent, critical race theory and social justice and all that, and whether you agree with that or not. Um, One of the things that I started to say was my daughter-in-law was a teacher at Henry Leavenworth. She moved to Piper now. But a lot of the things that she felt is she didn't feel supported at the times. And I hope I'm not stepping on her toes by some of the school board, by some of the administration. Um, Definitely not by the parents. It's a different world now. When I went to school, if I said, my teacher told me this, my parents were always on the administration side. I was always wrong. Nowadays,
That's where I grew
kids
up as well.
kids are right, and so we're questioning everything the teacher does.
Mhm.
It's got to be hard to be a teacher now.
It's incredibly hard, and I have a daughter who was teaching for a while, um, and it is incredibly hard because uh, you're right. The
You're in a
perspective
fishbowl.
is you're in a fishbowl. Perspective has changed. You're being questioned all the time, um, and so yeah. When I in your question about indoctrination, I'm sure. I mean, there's some people that they do that. I mean, you see some evidence of that,
Mhm.
but the vast majority of teachers, they're trying to do the right thing and 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 hone their art and do the,
Sure.
and because they care about the kids. And so, I mean, I don't want to run down teachers.
Mhm.
Their job is really hard.
Sure.
And I actually worry an awful lot about that because even the it seems like we're putting more and more and more responsibility on them.
Mhm.
And I worry about some of the because we've gone to like the data driven world.
Yeah.
And that's, there's a plus side for that because you need the information. So if you're moving in the right direction or you have the information, but it's kind of like, I imagine teachers feel like, do you want me to save the patient or do you want me to record the vitals?
Oh, good point.
Because
That's an
that's
excellent
kind
point.
of, that's how I'm not a teacher, but that's what I hear. That's the feedback I've gotten from, you know, my own daughter and, and from other teachers and everything, but I kinda liken it to that it's
Sure.
gotta be a very frustrating position. It's like, do you want me to save the patient or do you want me to be over here recording their vital signs? Because sometimes, it's awful hard to do both simultaneously at the same time, so I do, that is concerning to me. And,
Mhm.
you know, when we put more on our teachers, that's always a question that I have, like, picture myself in the classroom, is that too much? Is that, so yeah, it's a tough spot and and teachers are leaving the profession for a lot of those reasons.
When I was in high school, I had a drama teacher, Mr. Bagnall, James Bagnall, incredible person, mentor. Went through some issues with some of my friends who had committed some acts, and I got lumped into them. And he was the only safe space I had at the time at school. When we get to indoctrination, one of the things that really worries me is that a teacher who's listening to a child possibly come out for the first time because they can't speak to their parents or because they're going to be judged by their parents and trying to understand their lives in this new world or trying to understand what's going on with them. Uh, I think teachers get criticized for listening or not telling parents, or it's got to be just a very difficult situation to be in. And to, how do you provide a safe space? What do you tell parents? What do you just allow a child to vent and try to figure out life for themselves, especially as we get into high school? And so as the outside world starts to say we're indoctrinating them, is it because we're just allowing them a safe space to try to figure out life? I can't imagine that. I don't have that perspective. I don't have
Mhm.
any children that are ever went through that. I always told my kids if they ended up gay, I would love them still anyways, regardless, because they were my children. I met parents who disowned their kids because they felt like they were gay or the kids said they were gay. And that always hurt me, even though it's not my kid, but I can't imagine a child going through that. And I say a
Well,
child, an adolescent.
you I guess, where I come at that is you would never want that. You certainly don't. You feel for that kid maybe, but I just think that there's certain lines you don't cross. Like, it's not appropriate for a teacher to discuss sexuality with another person's child.
Mhm.
I mean, I don't that's just a line you don't,
Sure.
I mean,
I can respect that. I mean, it's just,
encouraging that, um, encouraging that parent-child relationship, you can of course, you feel for that, and we all know people that, their we know their home life is maybe unfortunate, not,
rough.
yeah, but there's just certain things that's just not. I mean, that's just the way I see it. That's not you don't that's someone else's child,
Mm,
and there's just, um, certain things you don't do. You just don't cross that line.
okay. What do you see as the top priorities facing our district these days?
Top priorities facing our district. Well, our academic achievement, of course, because and I would put that first because that's the reason a school district exists. is
Mhm.
to educate your kids, and um, if we're not turning out students that are competent and ready to navigate the world, um, then, you know, there's definite room for improvement because that's what we're
Sure.
here for. Again, what it does is what it's for. And so that would be number one. Um, we have um, declining enrollment in this area in Leavenworth schools, and there's a variety of reasons for that, but some of it is related to um, families are leaving. Um,
When
so
you say leaving, are they leaving the school to go to Lansing or to Easton or Tonganoxie? Or are they leaving the Leavenworth area completely?
I would say all of the above because there's a lot
Okay.
of factors that go into that. You know, we a lot of factors like
Mhm.
the CGSC classes that come into Fort Leavenworth are smaller.
Yeah.
They're they reach CGSC a little earlier in their career. Their kids are younger, so they're
Oh,
probably attending school.
that's
More
the
of them
first
are
time I've ever
attending,
heard somebody say that. I didn't
you know,
realize that.
school on Fort Leavenworth versus maybe where before they were in Leavenworth schools. Um, I would say that's one reason our town is not. We have a lot of businesses leaving.
No, we do.
A lot of businesses leaving and closing. We have a lot of people, and I'm in this category too. We thought this was a great place to raise our kids. It was a great place to raise our kids, we love Leavenworth, but our kids grew up, and our kids don't live in Leavenworth.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of people I think that are like us that raised our kids here, but because we don't have the businesses, we don't have the jobs, they're not staying here. So they're leaving the area for those reasons.
Okay.
Um, and we have, um, you know, we've had issues with behavior
Mhm.
and some of our academic achievement, which isn't where we would like it to be. So families are leaving for those reasons. Homeschool is becoming much more popular than it was. If you think back to when my kids were little, homeschool was like, oh, those, homeschool, that's weird. It's not weird
Mhm.
anymore. It's very mainstream. It's very, some of those military kids are doing online school because they're moving so much, so they're out of the system. So, um, but all of those issues together equals a smaller student body. You have less kids, and you have less kids, you have smaller budgets. And so that's one of the things that we're faced with is getting your budgets in line with what your trends are
Mhm.
and what it's going to look like, what it looks like now, and where you're going. And we're actually very fortunate that our superintendent has a lot of expertise in that area. Um, but that's a challenge. We don't have like during COVID the money's coming in,
The
all that's
ARPA
going.
money.
That's not coming anymore. So getting that lined up, um, attracting and retaining quality teachers and staff. And that's a challenge when your budgets are smaller. You don't have the resources that, you said your daughter teaches in Piper.
Mhm.
Well, a lot of people are going to Piper because they have
Started
the
out a little bit
resources
higher.
to pay them. So that's a challenge, attracting that staff and then keeping them. Um, that's so we're faced with that, and
Family sizes
it's
are
like
generally smaller these
family
days too,
sizes are
right?
smaller. Yeah,
It's the cost of living is so difficult, so parents aren't having as many kids.
right. So you might have like you know, I mean, we're crazy. We had 5 kids,
Ooh.
but most families aren't having five
But
kids.
the
Maybe
5
they're having
kids back
one.
then and 5 kids
Yeah,
now
for
5
sure.
kids now are far more
Yeah,
expensive.
yeah. and because you have kids who are having kids now, and so
Mhm.
why, and it's difficult. So all of those factors together, like we're in a period of adjustment. Um, so and we've made a lot of changes this year, getting that budget where it needs to be.
There was a
And
shortfall, wasn't there? Or
um,
a potential shortfall?
mhm. Yeah, and I
I'd
think
heard
they was
numbers of
I
like 1
think
to
they
2
spent
million.
like a whole year closing that gap.
Oof.
So just through um, a lot of hard work, really. You got attrition, which we have a lot of that in Leavenworth, just because we're pretty transient. So you
Mm.
have that naturally, and people and maybe some of those positions aren't filled. Those are maybe collapsed and not filled. Um, Moving people around where you're needed over here now, and instead of over here, we're still employed, but we've got to shift people around. So we've done some of that.
What about combining classrooms? Are we doing that too?
Combining classrooms.
Mhm.
I'm not aware that we're combining classrooms,
It just seems
but
like
maybe like if you had four fourth grade classes, now you've got three. And
exactly,
now
that's what I'm
yeah,
talking
okay,
about.
if that's what you're talking about, yes.
Yeah,
Mhm,
combining classrooms in that regards.
mhm,
One of the things that I had a discussion online about that I think people don't really understand is the cost to run a second grade classroom is X amount of dollars. If there's 5 kids in there or 25 kids in there, the cost to run that classroom is still X amount of dollars. So if we don't have enough kids in there, then we've got to pull that money from somewhere else
mhm.
because we get approximately $9,000. September 15th, I think, is the date that the state gives us that money for butts and chairs, is the way I've heard the term.
That sounds right. I'm not as I don't know if it's the 15th of September, but that
I think
sounds like it
that number
sounds.
seems
Yeah.
right. And the only reason I know that is because my son was at Warren. We were going to move him to Lansing because he had some he was struggling socially, and the discussion is Lansing didn't want us because they'd already gone past that date, and
Oh,
or a
that
date similar to that.
I
And
guess
so
I
they
can't speak to that. I'm not not familiar
That's
with
the only
that.
reason I'm familiar with that. And that kind of brings up a good point. So I've got a child that has a 14-year-old. He was at Warren last year. He's got ADHD. He's got ODD. Um, he's struggling with a lot of mental issues that we're constantly trying
Mhm.
to deal with. And the schools really aren't set up as a mental health resource. I mean, the kids are going there just to learn, and we're looking for resources for help with him, and that's just another struggle that schools have today that I don't feel like, or maybe I wasn't aware of 10, 15, 20 years ago. Seems like kids today have more mental health issues than we did in the past.
Um, I think the numbers bear that out. And it's definitely something that maybe, um, yeah, that wasn't such an issue um, previously. That is definitely stuff that schools have to deal with and have to
Hmm.
be able to address. Um, and I know in Leavenworth, um, we have several avenues to access that mental health. We were able to get a grant this year to bring on to staff members to help in that regard,
Hmm.
and I believe the to do some telehealth kind of stuff in addition to we've got the nurses and the counselors
Hmm.
and the school psychologists and the let me get the word right, the behavior board certified behavior analyst and registered behavior technician, and that would be serving a smaller population. But yeah, definitely dealing with a lot of those type of issues more so than I would say we remember.
When a school, or you mentioned that we're struggling academically, where can we make corrections? Is that a school board issue? Is it a teacher issue? Is it a district issue? Do we need to look at the superintendent? Where do we look to make corrections there?
Okay, this is me speaking.
Okay, sure. No.
Okay. Um, I think what needs to happen, and I think that we are moving that direction, is pouring a lot of prioritizing those early grades and the literacy piece.
Mhm.
Because if you think about it, if you're not reading well from first grade and down, that problem doesn't fix itself.
Sure.
And so um, I think something that um, I don't know that I really thought an awful lot about until getting on the school board. When you look
Sure.
at like moving that in the right direction, I see this as a long term project.
Uh-huh.
Okay, because it wasn't um, a few bad policies and a few bad that we ended up here where we're not performing where we need
You
to
think
be
this has kind of come through over time that we've
over
gotten to this
time,
point?
and and things maybe education is probably not the right word, but fads or
Sure.
like practices
Things
that
that were in
like we're just
vogue.
like yes, because like the way things are taught is not the way that you remember it being taught.
I can't do today's
Yeah,
math. I still
the
gotta
math and
carry
the
the one.
yeah, exactly, that kind of stuff. And then and now, like, in the world of literacy, what's interesting to me as somebody that's not, doesn't have an education background, like, it's like, we went through all of this, we went the reading and the whole word and this and everything, and now we're
Mhm.
back again to the phonics. And, sometimes the tried and true and the steady and the consistent works a whole lot better than, somebody's grand new idea. And so, but if you're asking me how we solve this, I mean, it seems to me just logically, you're going to pour a lot into those early grades because you got to lay the foundation. And if you don't have the foundation, you can't build on that. And I think a lot of our kids are getting further down the road and they don't have that foundation.
How many kids are, and maybe you know the answer to this, I don't know, that are in Leavenworth High School right now struggle to read?
I don't know, but by our reading test scores or by our language arts, but it probably a lot,
Wow.
you know? And and kids don't read. I mean, we don't read, like, even look at how, the trends in ELA and everything, we read excerpts, so nobody reads a whole book anymore,
Mhm.
and all of us are kind of like that because I can see it in myself because we're used to reading, like, short articles on, or
Our
reading social
attention
media.
spans have
Our
gotten
attention
smaller.
span is like a
Yeah.
gnat, but, and I don't see even in and this is generalizing, this is just
Sure.
anecdotal or whatever, because I do have I do have children who are avid readers, but I do have children even in my own family that I'm not sure, have you ever actually read a book all the way
Oh my
through?
gosh.
So, and
My
because
wife
it's not required, it's
my wife, when my kids were young, were adamant that I would read to them every night. And
Mhm.
so I think a lot of this has to start at home.
For
And I don't
sure.
know if our parents are too busy. I don't know how many our parents are doing that. We've told our kids it's something they should do as well. And I think that happens. And I think when you do that, once again, this is probably anecdotal. We see kids that read better in because they've had that
Oh,
experience over
I
time.
think studies have shown that. The exposure and the yeah, how do you read? You read. Like,
Mhm.
you know what I mean? Like, you have to,
Mhm.
like, you read. So, yeah, but I mean, I think where we could solve a lot of our problems or at least see those improvements is one, um, I am of the opinion that this is not gonna be like, "Oh my goodness, we got a new school board, we got a new superintendent,
Mhm.
and next year, look,
Everything's better.
the scores are off the charts, and
Mhm.
look at all these great improvements." It's, it's a long-term project, and I'm sure that when, you know, hopefully you lay things in place and you follow the process, and I'll be long gone off the Leavenworth School Board, but I'll be, looking for those like, "Oh, wow, yeah, we got," you know?
How
So,
much does the community reach out to you directly since you're on the school board with comments? And I mean, does your email get blown up all the time, or do you get
not all the
calls?
time. I mean, sometimes definitely I get email from, um, community members or, people within the district, concerns, complaints, um, sometimes I tell you though, it is frustrating to get your arms around things because we live in a world where one, I mean, everybody is more apt to comment on something in a negative way. That's just how we're wired, right? That spins us up, right? And
Some of it is anonymity because they can be keyboard warriors.
yes, and a lot of, I would say, a lot of social media that see, when you're like, well, is that a problem or is that not? Because it's not coming to
Mhm.
you like trying to make that determination, like, okay, if it's an actionable thing, something that you can get your arms around that maybe you can fix, you need the who, what, when, where, we need the facts. Also, reaching out to me as one board member, I'm one board member, and it's a board of 7.
Mm.
And I don't know, a lot of people may not know this, but the way the board sets the policy and the direction, but we have one employee, one, the superintendent.
Wow.
Okay, so that's the CEO. So something happened, and I'll just give I'll make up an example. Something happened. Somebody's mad about something that happened in PE class at David Brewer or something. Yeah, I don't know.
Mhm. Sure.
And and I'm gonna fire off email to my favorite board member. Well, okay, and you begin to like unravel that, like try to get it where it needs to go, and deal with that. Also, like I started to say, the social media. Sometimes you're like,
Mhm.
is that just gossip? Is that people? Because I don't. Yeah, it's hard to get your arms around that. But generally, when I do get complaints or people do have concerns, I try to be responsive to that. I try to um, follow up with that, take the complaint where it needs to go, um, and hopefully get things resolved um, in a manner that is acceptable to all the parties. And but it is hard, and that frustrates me a little bit because
Sure.
sometimes, and then you're like, here's the and there was a whole discussion about the food was terrible. Well, you have a problem with that? Well, that's not what I'm hearing, but I heard, because there's, 10 comments about, like, my kid hates the food too. And then, but then but that's not what generally is coming out of like
Mhm.
what you're seeing. Like, but our numbers say, look how many more people are eating, and all this
Yep.
stuff. So you're like, well, do we have a problem or that kind of stuff? That is, that can be frustrating sometimes.
Did you ever sit down and eat the school lunch just to see what the kids are eating?
Um, I have not done that but I have it on good authority. I mean, I have a teenage son
Oh,
who
that's
is,
true.
and he's pretty happy with, most everything.
Yeah, I don't ever remember a time when the kids loved the school lunch. Now,
No.
if you talk to the kids that I graduate with, they'll talk about the square pizza and how much they loved it.
Yeah.
At the time, I don't remember anybody bragging about it and how much they loved it
Yeah.
back then.
And that could just be an example, but just like you sometimes you hear stuff and you're like, well, is that a problem? Like, is this something we need to talk about or we need to address, or is that just people talk? Like
Do you think people just sometimes complain just simply because they have nothing else to do?
um well, not, I wouldn't go that far. I wouldn't say
Okay.
that, because if
Sure.
you're going to complain about something, if you have a concern about something or you're angry about something, that's real to you.
Sure.
So I wouldn't just say, oh, quit your complaining and griping and everything. I'm just saying, as somebody who might be in a position to, like,
Mhm.
okay, like, do we need to look at things or what's going on here? Sometimes it's hard to get at that and
Sure.
get when you kind of need the facts to deal with. And, is this just somebody blowing off steam? Is this, emotion? Because, perception is reality to,
Yep.
at the time. Um, so it's just, it's the age that we live in.
If you could talk about one accomplishment of your time on the school board, what would you point to?
um, well, by the numbers, it looks like our adoption of safe and civil schools,
Okay.
our behaviors are improving. Now, again, there's always somebody that, I don't agree with that. It's because,
Mhm.
and so that's an evolving story.
Sure.
So we're going to, but it was our first full year of adopting that program. The idea being, we handle discipline the same district wide. Every building's using the same language. Every building's
Mhm.
using the same procedures, and I think, I mean, and our initial numbers look like we- we're improving. There's some tweaks, and I think that we'll be addressing those. But initially, there's some positive things coming out of that, and I have visited some of the site councils, and when that has come up, generally people who attend those, which isn't a lot of people, but administrators and some of the teachers and everything, I
Mhm.
say I feel like it's a calmer atmosphere now. That depends on the day,
Sure.
and that it's a small number of students. It repeat offenders. So, it's a small number of students. It's not like you got to be careful. It's not all our students are out of control and all this. It's
Mhm.
not. It's not. Um, but that, like I said, that's an evolving story. But I think that that was a good move, and it makes sense to me. Just a logical thinker, like, okay, so we've got different buildings are doing things different ways, and we're using different language, and they're doing, and if we got on the same page, kind of calm some of the chaos, you start building culture over time, like this is the vocabulary we use. This is the way everybody knows what you're talking about when you say
Mhm.
this, and everybody, and then um, over time, you get a calmer environment where kids can learn and teachers can teach. And back to, that's what we're here for. And that is the purpose of a school system. You It's to educate kids. And if you got all this other stuff going on, um, it's difficult to educate kids. Um, I'm liking that initially,
Okay.
but again, and it's evolving because there's certainly some complaints about it too, or some concerns and some tweaks that we've got to do. But I would say that's one. Um, I think on a personal level,
Mhm.
our board relations are somewhat improving,
Board
because
relations meaning
with each other,
okay.
like that respectful
Mhm.
dialogue, not coming out the gate expecting the worst or
Sure.
that kind of thing. I think that's calmed down a little bit.
Mhm.
We're now in a position where, after our reorganization, that I ended up somehow, some way being the board president,
Oh,
but Judy Price is the vice,
okay.
and she and I have very different worldviews, and we really, um, I'll just say probably I think we're gonna work well together. I think we're gonna work well together, like, getting the business done, you know? But I won't speak for her, but I don't think she would have, and I know I wouldn't have said that 2 years ago.
Oh, wow, that's amazing.
So, we're here for the kids. Let's
That's where our community needs to go, though. I mean, we need to find time to work with people that we may not have the same worldviews on, just so we can get a different perspective. And
or
we don't need people to hammer us with our own perspective. We don't grow in that light. We grow in the light where we're challenged, our thinking is challenged, and maybe you say something, and I think our views are, or I find myself probably more moderate,
Mhm.
um, but maybe you say something that makes me think, and maybe I do change my view. Maybe I grow from that. Maybe I say something and that changes your view and helps you grow as a person. But I think that's how we get better. If we just stay with the people who think that we do the way we do, there's no growth that comes from that. And that's my concern that our political system has driven us to at this point, is that the left people want to stay with the left, the right people want to stay with the right. If you don't agree with me, you're wrong. If I don't agree with you, you're wrong.
Mhm.
And I think that's
And I
sad.
still might think you're wrong, but you're not
That's okay.
but you're not evil,
You probably don't agree
you know
100%
what I
with
mean?
your husband,
Like,
right?
we don't.
And you guys still stay
Shocking, isn't
married.
it? Yeah.
And you still stay married.
Right.
I don't agree 100% with my wife all the time. We still managed to stay married for 27 years. So we can have those relationships with
Yeah.
other people.
And then coming to it also, yeah, you, um, we've gotten so defensive too, so defensive. And sometimes, you know, um, sometimes you got to fight passionately because things are you're passionate about,
Sure.
and 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 that's okay. You got to have those discussions too, but um, you don't have to fight about everything. It doesn't. You don't have to fight about everything all the time, because I'll tell you, like 90% of what goes on the school board is business. Like taking care of business, and you can come at it a little differently and everything, but everything is not a fight. The things that are really close to us that we're really passionate about, we're probably going to fight about, but
Maybe fight's the wrong term. Maybe just disagree about. Maybe we don't have to say
yes,
fight.
yes,
Maybe we
disagree.
don't just maybe we
And we can
disagree.
disagree passionately
Then we
sometimes, but
can, very much
but
so.
I don't think, I look at the people that, okay, you've run for office, you're running for office right now.
I am.
It's when some people are born for it, some people love and some people are like,
I
well, I'm
question
just
it
a,
every day.
yeah, I'm just a citizen, and I just have these concerns, and I think I'm going to put my name on the ballot, and oh my gosh, and now all of a sudden, the the onslaught of criticism, or just it's just uncomfortable. I
Yes.
told you, like, I'm an introvert. I'm very, very comfortable being a support person. I'm very uncomfortable being the my name's on the line,
Mhm.
but and it's good to remember that the people that are running um whatever your issues are, whatever, these are your neighbors.
Exactly,
Literally. Like,
yes.
literally. And that was the thing, like, you should, these are the people that you see at Walmart. These are the people
Mhm.
that your kids go to school with. These are the people, so, like, keeping that in mind, that, I don't know, especially, like, on the local level, maybe that person didn't say that exactly right, but maybe they or maybe that didn't, or they're not as polished as you'd like to see them, and it's real easy to sit back and pick somebody apart.
Sure.
But to go and file to run for something is, you know, that's a gut check.
Any of us that does that, I don't care what side you're on, you deserve to be acknowledged for the fact that you're putting your life, your family's life on the line to talk
Course
about
you
these
would.
issues. And I don't think we appreciate that enough. And we attack people because they don't have our same views. You have commissioner that attacks us sometimes because they don't have our same views. Whatever it is, At the end of the day, it's not easy to put your name on that line. It's not easy to go out and campaign. And if you just talk about the issues and let the people vote and stop telling people what to do, allow the people to be the people. Let's trust the populace
Yeah, and
to
there's
govern.
and it's politics, and there's the persuasion, and you want to get your point across and all that stuff. But I think especially at the local level, because sometimes like we all have our strong opinions or whatever, and we
Mhm,
say a thing, but somebody who's removed, say removed from your community, even at the maybe the state level or at
mhm.
definitely the national level, we all have our strong opinions about this stupid
Sure.
everything, but they're removed from. You gotta remember, like, locally, like, that guy that is running for city commissioner or that person that's running for school board, they're not chances are they're not a professional. They're not
Right.
they're like, "I'm a citizen and I care about stuff, and so I'm gonna give this a shot." And maybe, when you remember that instead of just tearing people, grinding them to dust, because um, that's why people don't run, I think, don't engage.
We're going to shift now to our second segment where we
Okay.
find out a little bit more about Karen
Okay.
Overbey. Before we do that, though, I want to highlight I am wearing Stronghold Pantry's nonprofit t shirt. Stronghold Pantry serves our military with some of our soldiers who have food insecurity. I learned about this as I was running for the county commissioner, and I went up there and visited with them. I had no idea that that was really ever really an issue, and it hurts my heart to know that our soldiers do have food insecurity, that they're either not making enough or that they're having to put things aside to make ends meet. So, just calling that out. If you need a nonprofit to support, consider this. Consider our military and all that they do for us.
Absolutely. That's
All right,
fantastic.
here we go. So I've got 10 questions here. I'm going to ask you five. Or I'm going
Okay.
to ask you four. I'm going to let you
Okay.
pick a number
Okay.
and then we'll answer that question. And then the fifth one, I get to decide what question I want to ask you.
Okay.
So I'll let you pick the first number.
Out the gate, let's go with number 6.
What's a school school lunch item you secretly liked?
Okay, I remember this. Everyone
Okay.
hated it, but I didn't hate it. But they had fish and macaroni and cheese.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh.
And I'm sure
Okay.
you probably I'm in the minority, but I
Yeah,
I
you
always
are.
thought that was all right,
Anytime I went into the lunchroom and it smelled like fish, I
Yeah,
kind of cringed a little bit.
as
Okay.
did most everybody else.
All
But
right. Pick another number.
okay, let's go with number 3.
Okay. What's a local event or activity you never miss?
Easy Veterans Day Parade.
Oh,
I think
nice.
most of Leavenworth doesn't miss that one, and
That's
it's
true.
always either you're in the parade or have somebody in the parade or you're watching the parade. But I
Mhm.
love that tradition in Leavenworth. I think it's fantastic because there's there's other cities even in the state of Kansas that don't even really acknowledge Veterans Day. So
I like it. I like it. All right. Pick another number.
okay, go with number 7.
Seven. What's a hidden talent or hobby people might not know about you?
I don't know if I have any real talents, um, but maybe something that might be mildly interesting. I have a freshwater community tank of tropical fish.
Oh, wow. Okay. All
That
right.
was that came to us via an interest that my son, had in his about the 5th grade, and so we have this large tank, and he is grown up and married and gone,
And you
and
still
it's
take care of
mine.
the king.
Yeah, so
We had some fish for a while, and my wife, the day came to change the water was always a laborious
yeah.
day.
Yeah, that became my thing, but, but I kinda like it. It's kinda neat and kinda learning about that.
All right. One more.
Um, number 2,
Number two. Favorite subject in school growing up?
um, I liked history a lot, or when I was younger, social studies, that was I liked that. As I got older, I really liked Spanish. I enjoyed that. Um, Pretty much anything that did not have to do with math. I, I sped along in my elementary years and hit a wall, and then avoided that like the plague.
All
So
right.
anything not math related, I enjoyed. So,
Last question. I get to pick.
okay.
Best piece of advice you've ever gotten.
Best piece of advice. Okay, I'm going to give you two.
All
One
right.
from my dad and one from my mom.
Okay.
Okay. So my dad would tell me often growing up, if you ever have to choose between doing things right and doing the right thing, make sure you do the right thing because you have to live with yourself.
Okay.
So like doing things right or doing the right thing. And my mom will say sometimes, and she is a very intelligent and logical thinking wise woman, but sometimes we get spun up in the emotion of everything. It's like zoom out, zoom out. And I really and so many times I tell myself that, zoom out because what am I not seeing here? What am I not seeing? What like what's sometimes you have to kind of remove yourself and look at what's playing out, the players, the motivate, whatever. When you're trying to decide,
Mhm.
like, where do I land on this? Like zoom out. Like, am I considering everything? Zoom out. So I
Great
guess that would
advice.
be
Everyone, Karen Overbey with our school board. Thank you so much for your service on our school board. Thank you for your service in the military, for everything you do for our community. Thank you so much for being here and giving us your time. It has been just great to catch up with you.
absolutely. Thank you for having me. I enjoyed it.
We look forward to, that's the end of our segment today. Next week, we should have Chief Gates finally, I think, from Lansing Fire Department. Thanks a lot and have a great day.